Welcome to the Reality Revolution. Today we're discussing the ancient secrets for opening the third eye. What if I told you there's an eye hidden in plain sight, not on your face but within your consciousness? An eye that doesn't look outward but inward. An eye that perceives not objects or shapes, but patterns, energy, and truth. An eye, when opened, doesn't just show you the world, it transforms the way you see everything in it. Across the ancient world, this third eye was more than a metaphor. It was sacred, it was feared, and it was protected. In ancient Egypt, it was encoded in the symbol of the Eye of Horus, an emblem of healing, of divine perception, and of eternal awareness. In India, it was known as the Ajna Chakra, the seat of inner knowing nestled quietly between the eyebrows, waiting for the seeker to awaken it. And in the secret schools of the West, in the Hermetic, Gnostic, and alchemical traditions, the third eye was seen as the gate to the higher realms, the point where heaven and earth meet within the human form. But this knowledge wasn't meant for everyone. It was hidden, whispered in caves, temples, and manuscripts, passed only from master to initiate. Because to open the third eye is to begin a process you cannot reverse. It is to leave behind ordinary perception and step into a world where truth speaks in symbols, silence, and intuition. It is to begin seeing through the illusions that shape our reality. In this episode, we're going to explore what the ancients truly meant when they spoke of the third eye. Not the modern myths or the quick fixes, but the deep, powerful transformational path that mystery schools preserved across millennia. From the temple walls of Egypt to the chants of yogis in the Himalayas, to the cryptic words of alchemists and mystics. We'll follow the threads of ancient wisdom and discover the universal truths hidden behind this inner eye. And this won't be just a history lesson. You'll learn not only the symbols and teachings, but how to begin awakening this eye within yourself, step by step, safely, authentically. Because the ancient secret is still alive. It's not lost. It's simply waiting for you to remember. I remember the moment my third eye opened. Not like a flash of light or a sudden shock, but like the slow parting of ancient doors I didn't even know were there. I had been meditating, nothing unusual, just silence, breath, stillness. But something shifted, not in my body, in my perception. I began to feel a pressure right in the center of my forehead, as if something was blooming, unfolding from within. And then it was as if I was no longer sitting in a room. I was floating in a field of stars, but there weren't ordinary stars. They pulsed with intelligence, with intention, with presence. I saw geometry moving like living creatures, patterns made of light, spirals within spirals, shapes that spoke in silence, revealing truths I couldn't explain but somehow understood. And at the center of it all, a radiant eye. Not human, not alien. Divine. It wasn't looking at me. It was looking through me. And in that gaze, I could feel everything. My past lives, my karma, my purpose. The illusion of time. The illusion of separation. All of it peeled away like old skin. I didn't just see things. I felt them. I felt the emotions of people miles away. I could sense the energy of words before they were spoken. Colors had sound. Thoughts had texture. Everything became alive with meaning. I felt connected to something so vast, it terrified me at first. Not because it was dark, but because it was endless, infinite. And somehow I was part of it. not a visitor, but a thread in its fabric. And then came the realization, quiet, clear, and absolute. This is how we're meant to see. Not through the eyes of fear, not through the lens of logic alone, but with the eye of the soul, the eye that sees the truth beneath the appearance of things. Since that moment, my life has never been the same. Trees shimmer with a light I cannot explain. People speak and I feel their words before I hear them. And deep down, no matter what happens, I carry a kind of knowing that I'm not alone, that I'm part of something vast, intelligent, and awake. That the third eye once opened is not just a portal to visions, it's the return of a forgotten sense, a birthright, a reminder that magic was never outside of us. It was always waiting just behind the veil. The idea of the third eye may sound abstract, something out of myth, mysticism, or metaphor. But this concept has roots not only in ancient spirituality, but in our biology. When I say the words third eye to my son or to my wife, they laugh at me. That's fine. I know that they have not experienced this, but there's nothing I want more than for you to experience what I experienced. Understand that deep within the brain, nestled between the two hemispheres, lies a small, pine cone-shaped organ known as the pineal gland. It sits directly behind the center of the forehead, exactly where spiritual traditions have pointed for thousands of years when referencing the third eye. The pineal gland regulates melatonin, responds to light, and even has actual photoreceptor cells, just like our actual eyes. Ancient traditions didn't need modern neuroscience to know this. They felt it. They saw the patterns long before the microscope existed. In Egypt, this knowing was symbolized by the Eye of Horus, a sacred glyph that mirrored the anatomy of the brain itself. The curved lines, the spiral under the eye. It wasn't just artistic flourish, it mapped directly onto cross-sections of the pineal region. To the initiated, the Eye of Horus wasn't just a symbol of protection. It represented awakened consciousness, vision beyond the veil. In India, the same truth appears in a different form. The bindi, often worn on the forehead between the eyes, is more than a cultural adornment. It marks the seat of the Ajna Chakra, the sixth energy center in the yogic system. This chakra governs intuition, foresight, and spiritual insight. It's said that when the ajna is open, we no longer perceive life with the duality of the eyes, but with the unity of inner vision. In Western esotericism, the third eye is often portrayed as the all-seeing eye, enclosed in a triangle, sometimes radiating light. It appears atop pyramids, in Masonic symbols, and in sacred art, watching, knowing, transcending. It represents divine perception, awareness that pierces illusion and sees the deeper patterns behind material reality. So across time and space, across temples, texts, and traditions, this eye has always pointed in the same direction, inward, toward something eternal, toward a level of consciousness that exists beyond the mind, beyond the senses. This is not fantasy. The ancients revered the third eye because they experienced it not as a concept, but as a gateway, a passage to divine awareness, the universal intelligence, and to the truth of who and what we really are. Long before modern science dissected the mind, long before psychology gave us terms like intuition or subconscious, the ancient Egyptians were already studying the inner realms of human perception, not just through observation, but through sacred experience. In temples like Luxor, Dendera, and Abydos, initiates weren't simply taught, they were transformed. These weren't just places of worship, They were spiritual universities, mystery schools hidden in stone. Their architecture encoded celestial patterns, sacred ratios, and energetic pathways. The walls spoke in symbols, the chambers resonated with sound. Every stone, every glyph was intentional. Central to this tradition was the Eye of Horus, a symbol both familiar and enigmatic. To the untrained eye, it appears as a stylized human eye, but to the initiate it was something far more profound. The Eye of Horus represented higher perception, vision beyond the physical, beyond the emotional, beyond the illusion. Horus, the falcon-headed god, was a symbol of sky, of clarity, of awakened consciousness. His eye, restored after being torn apart in myth, became the emblem of wholeness, of spiritual sight regained. Not just seeing the world, but seeing into it. Here's where it gets even more fascinating. Modern anatomical studies have shown that the Eye of Horus corresponds almost exactly to the cross-sectional structure of the pineal gland and its surrounding regions in the human brain. The curved brow, the teardrop spiral, the lines and markings all align with parts of the thalamus, corpus callosum, and pineal body. Coincidence? Or ancient anatomical wisdom passed down in symbolic code? But the Eye of Horus wasn't just symbolic. In the temples, priests used sacred geometry, mantras, and vibrational healing to activate the inner faculties of their initiates. Sound was not used arbitrarily, it was a science. Specific frequencies were used to resonate with different energy centers in the body, including the Ka, the vital life force. The goal to awaken the Ba, the soul's higher aspect, and merge it with the Ka. This spiritual union was said to open the third eye, creating a channel between the initiate and the divine. Initiates would undergo intense rites of purification, silence, darkness, and sensory isolation. Only after these stages would they be brought into the inner chambers where light, sound, and geometry converged to create an environment of transformation. And when the eye opened, it was said the initiate would see past the world of forms. They would perceive the blueprint behind reality. The Netjeru, the divine principles behind all things. The ancient Egyptians didn't view the third eye as fiction. They didn't dismiss it as imagination. They considered it a sacred faculty, one that connected the human being to Ra, the solar force to Ma'at, the cosmic order, and to their true eternal self. And while their temples may now lie in ruins, the code remains. The eye still watches. For those willing to remember the path, it still opens. In the ancient yogic traditions of India, the third eye is not just a symbol, it's a center of energy, a chakra, specifically the Ajna Chakra, located between the eyebrows just below the bridge of the nose. Its name means command or perception, and it is said to govern our intuition, inner vision, and spiritual insight. This chakra is traditionally associated with the color indigo, a deep cosmic blue that reflects the boundless space of consciousness itself. Its symbol is a lotus with two petals, often depicted with a downward pointing triangle and a circle at the center, representing union of the dual and the divine. But the Ajna Chakra is more than poetic symbolism. It is a living, energetic center within each of us, a subtle organ of perception that opens when the body is stilled, the breath is deep, and the mind becomes clear. In the yogic path, awakening the third eye is not something to be rushed. It's not achieved through force or by chasing visions or altered states. It's the natural result of a life dedicated to inner purification and spiritual practice. One of the most foundational tools is meditation. By drawing the senses inward, The practitioner enters a state of stillness, what the sages called pratyahara. In that silence, the attention rests at the point between the eyebrows, activating the Ajna Chakra like a seed being warmed by the sun. And then there is mantra or sacred sound. Chief among them is the ancient syllable Om. Not just a chant, but a vibration that mirrors the pulse of the universe itself. When repeated with devotion and precision, Om harmonizes the energy body and brings the third eye into resonance with higher frequencies of awareness. In more advanced stages of practice, the energy known as Kundalini, often depicted as a coiled serpent at the base of the spine, begins to rise. As it ascends through the chakras, purifying and illuminating each one, it eventually reaches the Ajna Chakra, and when it does, something shifts. The seeker begins to perceive things differently, not with the eyes, but with the inner lens of consciousness. Truth becomes felt, not just reasoned. Intuition becomes immediate. Reality itself begins to shimmer with new depth and dimension. But the ancient rishis, the seers of the Vedas, warned of one thing. Without inner purity, third eye awakening can distort rather than clarify. Ego, illusion, and attachment can hijack the experience. That is why yogic life emphasized discipline, nonviolence, truthfulness, simplicity, contentment, devotion. For only when the heart is still, only when the mind is pure, can the vision that comes through the third eye be trusted. So in this tradition, the third eye is not just about seeing more, it's about seeing rightly, about perceiving the sacred within the ordinary, and recognizing the self not as a body or a name, but as the eternal witness behind it all. In the Western mystery traditions, the third eye was never named outright, but it was everywhere, veiled in symbols, encoded in teachings, whispered behind locked doors of initiatory knowledge. The Hermetic schools of thought, drawing from ancient Egypt and Greco-Roman esotericism, laid down one of their most powerful principles: as above, so below, as within, so without. This simple phrase is the key to understanding how the third eye was viewed in the West, not just as an organ of sight, but as a bridge, a link between the seen and the unseen, the material and the divine, the mortal mind and the cosmic intelligence that flows through all things. In Hermeticism, perception is not passive, it is alchemical. The mind is a crucible where thoughts, beliefs, and emotions are the base metals of the self, and the goal of the spiritual alchemist is to refine those raw materials into something higher. Gold in this case is not literal. It is illumined awareness, the awakened state. The philosopher's stone is not a gem you hold, but a clarity of vision that transforms how you see everything. This is the function of the third eye in Hermetic practice, to become the inner lens through which that transformation occurs. The initiate doesn't just gain new information, they transmute their entire reality. The symbol of the caduceus, often mistaken as a modern medical logo, is in fact one of the deepest visual codes in this tradition. Two serpents spiraling upward around a central staff. Their movement echoes the energetic channels of the Ida and Pingala from yogic science. And where they meet, at the top of the staff, between the wings, is the place of vision, insight, and enlightenment. The pineal gland, the third eye. Hermeticism teaches that when the dualities of life, light and dark, male and female, spirit and matter are brought into balance within us, a new perception emerges. Not one rooted in logic alone, but in gnosis, direct intuitive knowing. The third eye becomes the throne of that knowing, the crown through which divine light enters the human form. So while the language may differ from the East, the essence is the same. The third eye is the gateway to true perception. and perception, when purified, becomes creation. You don't just see the divine, you become aligned with it. In the early centuries of the Common Era, a hidden current flowed just beneath the surface of organized religion. A mystical path known as Gnosticism, a movement of seekers who taught that salvation was not found in dogma, but in direct inner knowing, gnosis. For the Gnostics, the divine wasn't locked in the sky or confined to temples. It was already within, and to access it, one had to awaken a deeper faculty of perception, what they called the eye of truth. This wasn't a physical eye, but a spiritual organ, a point of divine contact that allowed the soul to remember its origin. In their teachings, this eye was the lens through which one could behold the Logos, the inner Christ, the divine spark within each human being. Not a historical figure to worship from afar, but a living presence to be realized inwardly. They believed that through this sacred vision, the soul could transcend the illusions of the material world and return to the pleroma, the fullness of divine consciousness. This vision was controversial, dangerous, and eventually suppressed. But the lineage of mystical seeing didn't end there. It reemerged centuries later through the writings of mystics, saints, and most strikingly, in the late 19th century with the rise of the Theosophical movement. Madame Helena Blavatsky, a formidable mystic and scholar, helped reintroduce ancient wisdom to the modern world. She spoke of the third eye, referring to it as the Eye of Shiva, or the divine eye, not as mythology but as a latent spiritual power within all human beings. Through her writings, especially The Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky wove together Eastern and Western mysticism, reviving the idea that the third eye was a faculty of direct spiritual vision, something once common among the ancients, now dormant in most. She and other theosophists taught that human beings are multidimensional, that the third eye is part of the etheric body, a subtle organ designed to perceive higher truths clairvoyantly and intuitively. They believed that as humanity evolves, this dormant capacity will reawaken, and spiritual perception will become natural once again. In this lineage, the third eye is not just a tool, it is a birthright. The Gnostics called it gnosis. The Theosophists called it divine insight, and the mystics of every age have pointed us toward it in silence, symbols, and scripture. Whether through the light of the Logos, the eye of intuition, or the sacred flame within, the message is always the same. The kingdom of heaven is not elsewhere, it is within, and the third eye is how we begin to see it. For millennia, cultures across the world revered the third eye as the gateway to divine vision, intuitive wisdom, and inner freedom. And yet, somewhere along the path of history, this sacred knowledge began to disappear, not through accident, but through design. As empires rose and centralized power became the dominant force on earth, access to inner truth was no longer welcomed. It was feared, because when people awaken their own perception, they no longer blindly obey. They question, they discern, they see. In many traditions, the third eye was the key to direct connection with the divine. You didn't need an intermediary. You didn't need a hierarchy. You needed silence, presence, and the will to look within. That level of inner sovereignty was threatening to those who claimed divine authority over others, and so slowly the teachings were silenced. The Gnostics were labeled heretics, their writings burned, their knowledge driven underground. Mystics were exiled, alchemists persecuted, yogic and esoteric practices banned or buried under layers of dogma. What was once sacred became a cult, a word that simply means hidden but came to mean forbidden. In place of direct experience, we were given systems, belief without insight, ritual without revelation, the inner temple replaced by outer obedience. But the suppression didn't stop in the past. Some suggest it continues subtly, systematically, even now. In more recent times, researchers and alternative thinkers have pointed to the pineal gland, the biological correlate of the third eye, as a target of modern life. They speak of calcification, a process by which the pineal becomes hardened and less functional, potentially diminishing its natural sensitivity. Dr. Joe Dispenza confirms this through his own medical knowledge. Fluoride, often found in water supplies and dental products, has been linked in some studies to this calcification, though the mainstream medical consensus remains cautious or dismissive on the matter. Still, the question persists: why does one of the most uniquely mysterious glands in the body, one long associated with consciousness, dreams, and light, receive so little attention in public discourse? Why is it largely ignored by education, medicine, and culture? Why is it laughed at by the mainstream media? Whether intentional or incidental, the result is the same: disconnection. A species capable of divine perception left blind to its own potential. But here's the problem: knowledge can be hidden, but it can't be destroyed. It survives in symbols, in myths, in whispers passed down through generations, and in you, in your body, in your breath, in the silence between your thoughts. The third eye still waits, no matter how long it's been dormant, no matter how many layers have been placed over it. The truth is this: what was once hidden can be awakened again. By now we've explored the symbols, the teachings, the secrets, but the question remains: how do you actually awaken the third eye? What does that path look like, not in theory, but in daily life? The truth is, it begins with simplicity. Not with the exotic or the extreme, but with grounding, with clarity, with presence. The mystery schools of old understood this well. The body must be stable. The mind must be clear. The heart must be sincere. Only then can the deeper senses begin to emerge. In the Law of One material, Ra explains that it should be a slow process in the awakening of the third eye, that it shouldn't be done instantaneously. One of the most foundational practices is breath work. The breath is the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious mind. By using intentional breathing, slow, rhythmic, aware, we begin to calm the nervous system and invite the energy of awareness inward. Ancient yogis taught Nadi Shodhana, or alternate nostril breathing, to balance the energetic pathways of the body. Ida and Pingala, allowing energy to flow upward toward the Ajna Chakra. Another time-honored technique is Trataka, or candle gazing, which has worked for me. This involves focusing your gaze on the flame of a candle without blinking. The eyes water, the focus deepens, and eventually something subtle shifts. The outer fire becomes a mirror for the inner light. Trataka was used by yogis, monks, and mystics to sharpen concentration and gently awaken inner sight. Diet also plays a crucial role. Many initiatory paths emphasize clean eating, not as dogma, but as energetic hygiene. Foods that are alive, unprocessed, and grown with care tend to support the clarity needed for spiritual perception. Some traditions incorporate periods of fasting, not for punishment, but for purification. When the body is light, the spirit rises more easily. And then there is the power of sound. Sacred syllables, especially Om, resonate directly with the pineal region of the brain. Chanting Om with full awareness creates a vibrational field that gently stimulates the third eye, not through force, but through harmony. In mystery schools, sound was not art, it was science. Frequencies were used to tune the subtle body like an instrument, preparing the inner ear and eye for awakening. But perhaps the most important lesson of all this is the third eye does not open through effort alone. It doesn't respond to obsession or impatience. You can't chase visions and expect clarity. That leads to illusion, not insight. The third eye opens not with force, but with readiness. It opens when you're balanced, when your motivations are pure, when your body is nourished, your mind is quiet, and your soul is listening. And often it doesn't happen in some grand burst of light, but in a moment of deep stillness, when you realize you're seeing life not just with your eyes, but with something within you, something that's always been there. So let's just take you through a short little meditation, and we'll begin the process of awakening the third eye. It may not happen in this moment, but if you continue this process, I believe that you will eventually experience the full third eye awakening. For some, it can happen right away, and others, it can take a little bit of time. Have patience with it and follow this process. Find a quiet space. Sit comfortably, your spine tall, your body relaxed. Gently close your eyes. Bring your attention to your breath. Inhale slowly through your nose and exhale gently through the mouth. Again, inhale calmly. Exhale any tension. With each breath, let your awareness come inward. Let the outer world fade. Let the thoughts soften. Let the silence begin to rise. Now bring your attention to the center of your forehead, just above the space between your eyebrows. This is the seat of the third eye, the gateway of your inner vision. Imagine a small point of light there, perhaps indigo in color. A soft glow like a star behind your skin. It pulses gently in rhythm with your breath and your heartbeat. With every inhale, it becomes brighter. With every exhale, it expands softly outward. Breathe into that light. Feel it warming, opening, awakening. You may feel a subtle tingling, pressure, or stillness there. Just observe, no need to force anything. Now silently or aloud, begin to chant the sound, Om. Feel the vibration resonate through your body. Direct the sound toward the center of your forehead, toward that light. Om. Now let the vibration linger. Om. Let the sound fade into silence and sit with the stillness that follows. Allow your inner vision to awaken, not with effort, but with permission. Perhaps images appear. Perhaps nothing at all. Both are perfect. Feel this space as a doorway, a threshold, a place where knowing rises from the deep, where you begin to see, not with the eyes, but with the soul. Now sit here for a moment longer in silence, in stillness, in awareness. Now slowly begin to return. Bring your awareness back to your body, back to the room. Wiggle your fingers and toes, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes. The world may look the same, but you are seeing it from a deeper place. Now, after I opened my third eye, it was only later, long after the visions faded and the silence returned, that I began to understand. What I had experienced wasn't just an isolated spiritual moment. It was something the ancients knew, something they prepared for, something they were taught. In the mystery schools of Egypt and Greece and beyond, this was the great initiation, the moment when perception shifted from the outer to the inner, from the literal to the symbolic, from the seen to the real. These schools taught that the third eye could not be forced open. It had to be earned through purity, through discipline, through a life aligned with truth. The initiate was led slowly through stages, rituals, silence, fasting, geometric exposure, sacred sound. They underwent what was called a death before death, a symbolic dismantling of ego, identity, and illusion. Only when the lower self had been purified could the higher vision be trusted. Mystery schools didn't chase visions, they prepared the vessel, because the true power of the third eye is not seeing spirits or lights, it's seeing clearly, piercing the veil, walking the world with wisdom. And they warned, open it too soon and the light may blind you. Open it without humility and the ego will turn insight into delusion. But open it with reverence, with stillness, with sincerity, and the eye becomes not a spectacle, but a compass that always points home, back to the self, back to the source, back to the divine reality behind all things. The third eye is not something you open like a door. It's something that opens when you're ready to truly see, when your heart is quiet, when your ego steps aside, and when your soul is ready to return to the truth. We've traveled across temples and teachings, symbols and stories, from Egypt to India, from Hermetic schools to Gnostic revelations, and yet all of them point back to the same place, within. So I invite you to pause here to reflect. Have you ever had moments of deep inner knowing, a flash of insight, a dream that felt more real than waking life, a moment where the illusion cracked and something higher peeked through? If you've had those experiences, share them in the comments below. This is a space for seekers, for mystics, for the quietly awake. This is a space for the reality revolution. And if you're just beginning your path, welcome. There's more to explore. Check out the other videos on my channel where I go deeper into ancient wisdom, sacred symbols, and forgotten mysteries that are ready to be remembered. Like this video if it spoke to something in you. Subscribe if you feel the call, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next step on this journey. The third eye doesn't show you something new. It shows you what was always there, waiting, watching, ready to be seen. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to the Reality Revolution.